So I wanted to take a moment to chat a little bit about how I dealt with this or felt during the early stages of this. Especially this time of year, I've seen a lot of comments from people who are really struggling with the early stages of this. And it feels easy sometimes for me to be able to say it gets better, just wait till you get to the other side. And I sometimes think that those comments can get lost in the reality of the moment. One of the things that I've talked about in the past about creating this channel is I still remember how hard it was during the dark days of this. In the beginning, when I didn't have any information or anything to explain what was going on or to help me think or feel that this was actually going to get better, that there really was something on the other side. Now, I had that hope and I, held on to that, but there were a lot of days, especially in the first couple of years, where I really felt like this was never going to end, that my kids I would never be able to really click with my kids and to really turn a corner there. I can remember when those Groundhog Days, every time the kids would come back home, and it would be a nightmare, and they would be pushing buttons and they would be angry and frustrated, and it felt like every week just was, drudgery just to get through it. I can remember early on with this thinking, maybe if I'm lucky, maybe I'll get some type of validation from my kids when they're in their 20s, or maybe their late 20s. I mean, that's really what I was thinking about. And to be going through what you're going through right now and thinking that, you're not even sure if there's something on the other side other than just beating your head against the wall, it can be really tough. And it was really tough for me. There are times where I would just get to the point where the kids would go to their moms and I would just completely shut down. To be perfectly honest, there were probably times when, well, not probably, there were times when I had the kids with me and I was just a shell of the person I wanted to be, just trying to just fake it enough to get through it. And sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes, even when the kids were here, I would be really, really worn down. And it was just, everything felt oppressive. Now, fast forward, years later, and things are different. Now, part of it is, and this is the really interesting part about this, is that once you start implementing some of these tactics, some of these skill sets like hybrid no contact and absolute thinking and black hole thinking, because it really calms you down. And then you start focusing on working and building those relationships with your kids. I'm gonna have to come up with a really cool term for that technique as well. All those things working together really start to stabilize your situation, and typically you start to see improvements. Now, that validation that I was hoping to get, way later in adulthood, way after all this custody stuff and the family court stuff was done, I actually started to see results quicker. And that was a big help. And hopefully in your situation, once you start to modify your tactic on how you're interacting with your kids and how you're interacting with your ex, you're going to start seeing those little improvements. I used to call them micro improvements in some of my older videos, but it really is the case, right? You have to look for those subtle improvements to really be able to go, see, it's starting to work. I can see that things are starting to click. And then it's kind of an exponential thing after that. I mean, once you start, the first part is once you start seeing that you're having some success, then when you're having those down times, when you're struggling, you're seeing the victories, so it makes it a little bit easier. Instead of having that blind faith that a lot of us have to have at the beginning of this, you actually have some indicators that are showing you that it is actually working. And oh my God, once you start getting that, it's really helpful. Now, The thing with that is those victories aren't easy, right? Those aren't little just, phoning it in type thing and you're just going to start seeing victories. You have to work at it. You have to persevere through it. You have to really, it is a struggle. You have to struggle with not responding to your ex, and make sure you're implementing those hybrid no contact techniques. The same thing with, and I cut my finger earlier. Actually, I was putting my camera on a tripod and screwed something down and smashed the hell out of my finger, and it bleeds all the time. So that's just really awesome. Sorry about that. Anyways, so the second part about that is, once you start doing those techniques where you're reminding yourself what you're dealing with, that's part of the hybrid no contact. Then it phases into where you're reminding yourself of what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with. And the third part about that is that black hole thinking, to where you're trying to push out what your ex is doing, whatever's going on, and just getting it out of your mind. At the same time, you're building those relationships with your kids, which really makes a difference. Okay, so I'm talking about, the success part of it. So, but my point is, if you're really struggling in this, and maybe sometimes if you're watching my videos, you're thinking, yeah, whatever, maybe your situation wasn't as, as bad as mine, and maybe it wasn't. But what I can tell you is, and it's tough for me sometimes when I hear your guys' comments and your stories, because I can remember being there, and I have a lot of empathy for whenever you guys are saying those things and being really down and being in a dark place. And it's I want to be able to just reach in through the camera and just pull you out of that abyss and pull you up. And I realistically, I know that, things don't work that way. So the most I can hope for is that maybe you'll see somebody who you can relate to, who you believe really went through what you're going through right now, and see somebody who's gotten to the other side and say, you know what? I can do that too. I can do that. It's not going to be easy. I can persevere through this. I can just muscle on, and if I'm having a bad day, I can just do what I need to do, just get to the next day. Get to that next moment. Get to that, just keep pushing yourself on. And then hopefully you'll start to see some of the successes, some of those little micro victories that roll into more, macro victories. I always get macro and micro confused, but and really start to believe that you really do have an opportunity for a good future, because you do. And one of the things that really helped me when I was going through those dark stages, because I didn't have, I didn't have a YouTube channel or anybody that I really knew that I felt I could really relate to. There were some great channels out there that had some information that really made sense about narcissism and covert narcissism and PTSD and CPSD and all that stuff. But there was nobody who was really talking about the issues whenever you're trapped with family court and with kids having to deal with somebody. But in that situation, it was just that visceral feeling of, I am not going to be broken by this. She is not going to break me. This situation is not going to break me. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to make sure that I have a life on the other side of this in spite of everything. And it is going to be a good life. And it is going to be filled with good people and joy and better relationships with my kids, and all of this crap that they're doing, all this crap that your ex is trying to do to destroy you, to break your back on this, that you're going to persevere through it, and you are going to have one hell of a life afterwards. Now, for me, that was just an angry, I'm just going to do it. And I hope that you can find something to pull you through on this. And I know I talk a lot about not really wanting to get caught up in the anger, but there was a point in time where it really helped me just persevere and just keep going on. Because whenever I would feel really down and when I would feel really in those dark places, I'm like, I am not giving up. And I say that, and maybe that sounds like it was easy, and it wasn't. And those days that just sheer will wasn't really pulling together, then I would crash. I would go to sleep. I would take long naps. I would isolate from people, and I would do whatever I needed to do to rebuild my batteries, just to push through to the next day, to get up and try again. And, you know, guys, I know this stuff is hard. I know how devastating this feels. But trust me that there is life on the other side of this. You can persevere through this. And, you know, I don't normally like to talk about it and, you know, talk about this whole thing about the revenge side, you know, because there's people who say, well, the best revenge is having a good life. And if that's what you need to say to yourself to push through, that's okay. Because what ultimately is going to happen is you're going to get to the point where they don't matter anymore, that you're not going to care, that, you know, it's not going to be, yeah, I'm having a good life, F you. It's going to be, man, I'm having a good life and I don't care about that person. That person is just a little gnat that has no influence on what's going on in my life. So I just wanted to throw this out there because I know how hard this can be. And I've seen in a lot of messages in the last few weeks that people are really struggling. And I've been struggling to try to come up with a message that I felt good that could really connect with people. And I'm not sure if this is the message, and I don't know if this does connect with you. I hope it does, because you have the strength to make it through this. You have the strength to persevere. You have the strength to minimize the impact that your narcissistic ex has on your life, and you have the strength to help it mitigate a lot of what it has on your kids. And as you progress on this, and their influence keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until it's but just a little flicker of a light that ultimately will go out, you're going to get there. If I can help you do that, I will do anything I possibly can to try to help you along in that journey. Just try to have some faith, try to have just even the minuscule belief that it's possible, because it is possible. All right, I'm going to wrap this video up. I'm not going to do my normal little outro. Just hang in there, and I will chat with you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye.